How you doing? Welcome back to another episode of In the Sand Podcast. I'm super excited to be here for another episode. Got another great coach on and excited about it. This is our second college coach that we have on. So again, we are constantly opening the doors and just creating opportunities for everybody to learn at different levels and get different experience. And before Coach and I even started the interview, man, we had almost a 30-minute conversation, but which tells you so much about Coach Fletcher, man. He's a mentor to a lot of individuals. He's an inspiration to a lot of individuals. He's willing to help people beyond measures. And as we get into this interview, you're going to realize Coach has so many hats. So for him to carve out time to help people is just amazing. And there's not a lot of people in this world that you can call on, you can lean on to help you and kind of help you maneuver do different things. And this is people who may or may not have a close relationship with him. Coach just sees an individual who needs some help, needs some guidance, and give an encouraging word, and he's that guy for us. So I'm excited to have Coach Fletcher on. Coach Fletcher, welcome to the podcast, brother.
Man, I'm glad to be here, Coach Sanders. Thank you, man, for that intro, man. You mighty nice, mighty kind.
Man,
I'm grateful to get the call to be on the show. I'm a fan. I've been watching, and I think what you're doing is great. In our world, it's so wicked, and there's so much negativity going on social media. And what you're doing, brother, you bringing some positivity, and you bringing some people to the limelight that need to get the credit. That's working behind the scenes and doing some great things, and their story deserve to be heard. And man, I applaud what you're doing, man. You're awesome, man, and I thank God for you. And everything that you stand for in the podcast. Glad to be here.
Coach, I appreciate you saying that, man. It's always good to hear some encouraging words, man. And you are right, man. I just want to be able to bring some positivity, to the world. And as you and I were talking about off camera, just some of the things that you have done and some of the things that you have kind of walked through in this journey has been a positive vibe for me. So positive, positive vibes back to you. And even we talked about this as well. But a couple of years ago, when I was at Pisgah, and of course you were at Newton, you came over to our shootout that we had. You brought your young ladies over. The ladies were well coached, but in that coach, the team that I had wasn't probably the most talented team there, but they worked hard, and you gave me some inspiration. You gave me some encouraging words. So the positivity has been on the even side. So I'm grateful for that. Coach, I'm excited to hear your journey because, again, like I said, man, we had a great conversation before we even got started with this. But I know it's so much more to who Coach Fletcher is. And I want to just kind of open that book up and let everybody see the greatness that I see in you. And I know that you're a super humble guy, and those who know you understand what you do on a daily basis. But I want to take this time to kind of spotlight you and allow people to see that. So, Coach, with that being said, talk to us a little bit about your journey to where you are right now and what the game of basketball has done for you. But also, too, there's some other things that are great about you, too. And you can kind of tie that in together about where you are now as you talk about your great journey in this life that we have.
Basically, man, basketball saved my life. My journey, I was born and raised right here in Central Mississippi. Started out in Rankin County, Peleahatchie, a little small town called Goulding, Mississippi. And actually, I can't tell my story without telling my mom's story. My mom was 17, a junior in high school when she was pregnant with me. She was really, really smart, and everybody kind of told her, Linda, you need to abort. You need to have an abortion. You're going to mess up your life. You're going to ruin your life. A baby's going to ruin your life. And I'm so grateful that my mom was stubborn, because if she had been stubborn, then there would be no me. So she defied the odds, man. She's my shero. At 17, she came in this world with a baby. Her senior year in high school, she persevered with me, a baby, and she graduated second in her class. Salutatorian with a baby. Couldn't go to college, had a scholarship offer from Tougaloo, couldn't go, had to get a job at the chicken plant, got a job, went to school at night, and some kind of way, man, we made it. And that's how my journey started. My journey continued with my father. My father died when I was 10 years old from cancer. It was just me and my mom left here. And that's why I say basketball saved my life, because I didn't have a father. So basketball, what it done for me, it gave me a father figure and a coach. You know, basketball teammates was like brothers. It was like a family. Basketball was my first family. Then basketball allowed me an opportunity to pay for my education, because that's how I got to Jackson State. Through the gift of basketball and academics, I was able to go to Jackson State on a scholarship. So basketball did that for me. And not only that, basketball gave me my first vacation. I never would have got a chance to fly on a plane had I not been at Jackson State. I went to Hawaii, Alaska, Mexico, all because of basketball, man. And not only that, basketball gave me my first job through Alcorn State University. And that's kind of what I employ to all the kids that I coach when I'm coaching. Basketball saved my life. So we can't play with this ball. I take it really seriously. And if it saved my life, it can save others. And that's kind of how my journey started. And that's kind of how I adapted to basketball, because I can't change no oil. I don't know anything about fixing the air condition. So all I can do is just try to motivate in basketball. I'm not a guru, but that's all I know. That's all I know to do. So basketball has been kind to me. So that's kind of how I was able to be embellished in basketball. That's where my journey started. It was really with my family, with my mom.
Coach, that's a powerful story, because people probably look at you naturally and just say, well, coach probably had it XYZ. What I mean by that is probably had it good. But when you look at it, coach, you were almost, and not to say it in a negative way, you was almost set up for failure almost, because when you have a young lady, 17 years of age, they already count them out. And yes, the road is tough, but it doesn't mean the road is over. So for her to keep persevering through that and not knowing, and probably not take it back, because I'm thinking because of the strength that she has and her mindset, she had to know that she was pouring a little bit of that into you. And that really is shown in your coaching. Of course, we're going to talk about the other side of that you're positive and known for on the ministry side, and I'm going to talk about that a little bit later on. But that is a story, and anybody who kind of keeps up, biblically, God works on so many things on so many different levels. So when Perry Fletcher was born, it's so many things that he had in front of you that you probably didn't see. And so I'm just getting excited as I see that, man. You got a she-ro, man, hard work. Here's something that I wanted to point out, and this is a good point for all of our coaches, female and males. And we see it more and more in our society, a mentor, a father figure. And I was reading this quote today before I even got on this interview. It was saying, so it was by Don Myers. I know I'm gonna mess it up bad, but I guess the focus of it is that it's kind of hard to tell our kids to do something, like be a leader, go to class on time, work hard, and they don't see that same character in us. So it's not about what you say, it's about what you do. And so, coach, you having a father figure, because you lost your father at the age of 10, that coach made a difference. And I said that to say that too, coach, because I see a lot of us as coaches, I think sometimes we take our positions for granted. We don't really realize the power that we have. And it's just a reminder to be able to make sure every day we're focused on what we're doing. And sometimes we get caught up in our own world. Sometimes we get up doing our things, but there's some kids who need us. And I think, and I reflect back to being a younger coach. And this is more for our younger coaches too. When you're young, you still kind of try to do the things you used to do before you were the leader of young men and young women, and you try to tie those two in together. You got to choose one, coach, and I know you probably talk about this a lot. You can't be on both sides. If you're gonna be somebody's coach, go ahead and be somebody's coach and kind of let that other side.
Yes, sir.
Because a kid like Perry Fletcher or a kid like Brandon Sanders or any kid, they need you, and that's going to propel them forward. So I'm glad you said that, because mentorship is amazing. Coach,
sir.
of course, you coach at Hinds, you coach on the women's side, and I definitely want to talk about that. I'm excited to learn about more on the collegiate side. That's kind of a dream of mine, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. But coach, you have laid some roots here on the basketball side, on the high school side, girls and boys. And before I first met you, when you were at Newton, I was able to read the articles about you, about the information, well, about the things you did at Forest High School and the things you did at just previous high schools. So coach, talk to us about each stop that you had on the high school level before you went on to the collegiate level. And I know one of your last stops was at my alma mater, Murrah High School. And coach, I
Yeah.
was rooting for you. I'm gonna talk a little bit more about that little part of it when you get there. But coach, talk to us a little bit about your high school experience. Talk about some of the championships you won, and just talk about anything that can be a benefit to others, but also too sharing your story at the same time, because your legacy in high school is major, man.
Right. Well, actually, man, you know, when I graduated Jackson State, I was a criminal justice major. Um, after I was done playing ball, I took an internship on the Natchez Trace Parkway, and it was going great. I was actually getting ready to be commissioned as a law enforcement officer, be a federal park ranger. I was getting ready to go into the academy that summer after I graduated, and I was doing this intern on the Natchez Trace, and I was already in uniform. And me and another officer, we pulled a gentleman over on the Natchez Trace. And when we pulled this guy over, he said he was on his way up to Memphis on the Trace. He was going to buy a 64 Chevy. So he had like $2,500 cash. Well, he had a little roach, marijuana in the car. So the guy that I was with, we arrested him and we took him to Can. You know, we said this guy possession. And when we got there, he explained to us that he had this cash because he was going to buy a 64 Chevy. He was recreational smoking, whatever. But the officer that I was with wrote the paper up that this guy was in possession of marijuana, had cash, was intent to sell through all these charges. I'm like, oh wow, I'm still a senior, and I'm like, it's not what happened. Of course, it was a brother that was finna get railroaded. Long story short, he told me, okay, take him back there to the cell. And when I took this brother back there to the cell, he had tears in his eyes. He was like, man, I promise you, I don't sell no weed, man. I mean, I'm really going to buy a car. Here's a number you can call, to verify my story. And I'm like, man, it's nothing I can do. So I put the guy in the cell and I closed the cell door. And man, that whole night I couldn't sleep. And then I prayed and I said, man, it has to be more to my life. I said, Lord, I do not want to be the last face that brothers see behind these bars. I want to be the first face they see to keep them from getting behind those bars. I called my coach, Coach Struthers, then the coach is at Tougaloo now. I called him. I said, Coach, I can't do this. I said, you got to help me, man. I said, you got to get me back in school and be a grad assistant or something. Long story short, he called Shirley Walker, set me up on the interview. And Shirley Walker, I played with her son Chico at Jackson State, and she was beautiful to me. I love her to death. She hired me as a grad assistant. So that's how I got in coaching, man. I really was supposed to be in law enforcement, but I just couldn't do it, man. I couldn't lock our brothers away. I wanted to be a part of that change before they got to that stop. So I started coaching at Alcorn. Did well with the women's 2 years. I learned a lot from Shirley Walker and her husband, Lonnie Walker. I was blessed to switch over and coach with the men's. Sam West, after Dave Whitney retired, and I'll talk a little bit about them later. Sam West, I coached with him. And during that year, man, the Lord began to deal with me. I always had a peculiar spirit, never knew what it was. And the Lord just he was pressing me. And I was like, Lord, what is it? What do you want me to do? And the Lord spoke and said, I want you to go preach. And I said, Lord, I'm coaching in college. It's some Braves down here. I need to do some scapping. What you mean you want me to go preach? I'm at the prime of my life. You know what I'm saying? I'm 22, 23 years old, assistant head coach on the collegiate level. So I surrendered. And I accepted my call, and I told Wes, I said, look, man, the Lord has called me to the ministry. I want to go to seminary school. So I left Alcorn, and I went back home to Morton. That's where I'm from. I went and I said, look, I'm just going to seminary. I don't want to coach. I just need a job, just teaching while I go to seminary because the Lord called me in the ministry. I did that for 1 year, man. I taught family dynamics. I had to give out a little dog, man. That was, oh man, I'll tell you about that later, man. Ooh, Lord have mercy. I taught that class, man, for a year, and in that year, um, the principal was Nick Hillman. He came down the hall. He said, "Look, Fletcher, our girls program, they only won 4 games. The girls coach had got into some trouble. He's not coming back. Would you be willing to coach the girls?" Back then, we weren't making that much money in high school. That was going to be an extra supplement. Because I mean, I was making $26,000 as a teacher, and they said, "We're gonna give you $2,500 to coach the girls." What? Yeah, I coach.
Yeah.
So that coach, this is no lie. So I said I took the girls. So I'm gonna be coaching the girls next year. The very next week, Nick Hillman came back down the hall and said, "I coach Coach Cannon coaching the boys. He's gonna leave and take another job. Would you be interested in coaching the boys?" I said, "You want me to coach both?" Now, granted, I've only been an assistant on the collegiate level, never been a head. I said, he said, "We're getting another 2,500." I said, "I'll do it." So sign me up. So in 2 weeks, now the next year, I'm going to be the head boys and girls basketball coach at my alma mater, which Shay Hinds was on that men's team that I would be blessed to coach, and Corey Steele and some guys, some real talented guys. And the next week, coach, I can't make this up, man. Nick Hillman came back and said, "Well, look, I got an opportunity to go be a superintendent. I'm leaving. We're going to make my assistant, Ms. Sarah Gaddis at the time, be the head principal. I know you don't want to be in this classroom. You got a master's degree. Would you be willing to be her assistant principal and just coach boys and girls basketball?" I said, "I haven't taken the administration test." "Don't worry about that. You got a master's. Do you want a job?" And it's a $7,000 raise. What? "Yes, sir, I'll take it." So my first year, man, that's how I got in coaching. So I started out at my alma mater at Morton. And listen, the Bible said a prophet is without honor in his own home. When I tell you that was the hardest, that was the hardest 5 years of my coaching career, coaching my hometown. Especially, we hadn't won. It had been years since we had won. It was tough. It was really tough. But I tell you, that made me the coach that I am, to experience those lows. And I believe that's what I was sharing with you when you started off in the beginning stages. I went through it, man. People that you grew up with, "Oh, that MF don't know what he's doing." Having to hear that. I'm like, "Damn, you taught me Sunday school. What are you doing?" But coach, I mean, those kids, I wrote a book, and I accredited a chapter to those student athletes that I coached in Morton. They really helped me become the coach that I am, man. Before you can understand success, man, you have to experience failure. And I'm telling you, we lost. I remember many nights after games, man, I would go sit on that football field in the stadium, sit in those stands while everybody else was going on their way. My wife wondering where I was, 10, 11, 12 o'clock, just crying my eyes out like, "Man, what's wrong with me?" Why, it was a struggle. But I'm grateful for those years. It really humbled me, and it helped me to pay attention to details. And before we left Morton, we was able to turn the program around, both boys and girls, and by us doing that, that opened some doors for me. So from coaching 5 years, so that's where I was. I started in Morton. Well, I coached a gentleman by the name of Matthias Evans, and he's now the assistant coach at Clinton High School. He played for me. And his daddy was Matthew Evans, who was the assistant superintendent in Rankin County at the time. And I helped Matthias. I don't know if he went to Jackson State. He went over there, helped him get on the team there. And Mr. Matthew Evans pulled me to the side, and he said, "Fletcher," he said, "Man, you helped my son. I want to help you." He said, "Come on to Rankin County in administration. I got a job for you as assistant principal." I said, "Well, I'm coaching now. I only been coaching 5 years. I'm good with coaching. I'm not ready to get out of coaching." He said, "Well, look, we're gonna pay you this amount." Well, that amount that they was gonna pay me was $40,000 more than what I was making. I said, "Okay, what time you want me to be there?" So, coach, I actually got out of coaching and went to Brandon, and I'm glad I did, because I built some relationships that's proved off to be faithful for me even now. So I did that for 3 years, and I was missing coaching, man. I was like, that's why I learned that it's not about money. It's about having peace, and it's about fulfilling your purpose. No, you can't put a price tag on what your purpose is. And I that's how I got to FARS. The FARS job opened up. Coach legendary Pinkston, Coach Pinkston, he retired, and I was able to go to FARS. I was there for 5 years, and man, it was great. Coach some great kids. Danny Dunn and Ladarius Scott, Howard Smith, coach some guys, and we had a great run for 5 years there. Um, we was there 5 years, went to the Coliseum 4 out of the 5, played for that championship, 2 out of that, semifinals, 1 out of that. I mean, it was just great, man, for us there. And then it happened. The Lord called me to pastor the first church that I pastored. And I felt like, in order for me to uh, fulfill what God wanted me to do, basketball consumed too much of me. So I told Forrest, I was like, I'm not gonna come back because I'm gonna just pastor and focus on ministry. And coach, I'm telling you, I applied for 30 jobs. Walmart wouldn't even hire me. I was trying to get out of coaching, man. I'm talking about I'm going to the Shell, BP, Walmart. I'm at hospitals. Wouldn't nobody hire me, man. Either you don't have enough experience or you got too much experience. I couldn't get a job. And Mr. Clint Johnson reached out to me and said, Fletcher, I need you to come and interview for this job here at Murrah. I said, man, I only coached at Martin Forest, a 3A school. What you want me to come to Murrah? And he told me, he said, well, you coach my son, Trey Johnson, at Alcorn, and he speaks highly of you. And he said, you ought to call Fletcher. And he was like, just come interview. Well, mind you, coach, they had Randy Bolden, Luther Riley. I'm like, why you want me to come? He said, well, we just need 3. So I interviewed. I didn't even fill out for the job or nothing. I just went off of Mr. Clint calling me. So I interviewed, and I'm like, man, they're going to get this job, Luther Riley or Randy Bolden. Well, what happened, Randy Bolden ended up getting the job at Hinds. He was assistant. He ended up getting the head job at Hinds. So they was like, well, we're going to go with Luther. So Mr. Clint called me and said, Fletcher, thank you for coming. Everybody said you did great in the interview, but we're going to go with Riley, Luther Riley. And Luther was just finishing up his run at Columbia. And should I say Dr. Riley? He just completed his doctorate. That's my guy. I'm proud of you, Luke. So, Coach, I said, no problem, no problem. I said, thank you, Mr. Johnson, for thinking about me. I said, Coach Riley do a great job. Long story short, I get a call on that Monday. Mr. Johnson said, well, Luther can't take the job. You're going to be our man. Huh? Me? The mighty, mighty Murrah Mustangs? Y'all sure that's what y'all want to do? And that's how I got to Murrah, man. And that oh my goodness, I talked about that in my book. That was great for me. It was so much history. Matter of fact, we was blessed to make a Coliseum run, and I actually wore a shirt commemorating the legendary coach every game, man. With his name on there. I mean, I was just honored to be able to walk in those shoes and that foundation that had been laid there, man. It was a great experience for me being there. Didn't want to leave Murrah, but the Lord opened up a door for me to go and do administration. And my family had, financially, the superintendent from Newton called me again, Coach. I'm telling you, called me and said, look, Fletcher, look, I know you just got to Murrah, but you're not going to tell me no. I need you to come to Newton to be assistant principal and coach these girls. I said, I just got to Newton. I'm going to give you $20,000 more. You know what I said. Oh, that's how I got to Newton, man. Went to Newton. Again, the Lord blessed us to be successful. We had a program, some young girls, they bought in, we built a program, and we were successful. And everything was good. And I could still be at Newton today. But I have a son who's at Brandon. He's a sophomore at Brandon, but at the time he was in the 8th grade. And I couldn't bring him to Newton because he went here and I coach girls. So the plan was, okay, Dad, you need to get a boys job because I want to play for you. So I'm like, man, I'm here at Newton, got a good situation. But here again, man, family. I didn't have a dad growing up, so it meant something to me, man. So the Lord opened the door at Terry, um, 6A program, good school system. I'm coaching boys, so I'm thinking I'm gonna take this job at Terry for my son. I'm gonna go here so he can transfer and come. Well, I get the job at Terry. My son said, "Well, Daddy, I'm gonna just go just 1 year and I'm gonna come after my ninth grade year." Okay, no big deal. Because Byram's middle school is not with Terry. So he went to Brandon ninth grade year, so that everything was good. He's supposed to come and transfer this past year, be at Terry. We get a call from his teachers. Parents got some problems, not in class, anxiety, talking about my son. So my wife get him. Come to find out, my son was like, he didn't want to let me down, but he really wanted to stay at Brandon. And I'm like, son, you don't have to make a decision for me. I said, we sacrifice for you. You don't have to come to Terry if you want to be at Brandon. Long story short, coach, he wanted to be stay at Brandon. He had, and give him his credit, he done moved from 3-4 schools because of me coaching. So he's finally been somewhere 3 or 4 years. So, so I sacrificed. So here I go again. I told Terry, like, look, I'm just gonna step down because I can't coach Terry and my son play at Brandon. So that's kind of how that happened. So I was just about to take a principal job, just do administration and support my son. And Hinds, I got a call. Look, this job is open, the program is down. Would you come interview? Long story short, collegiate, junior college play on Monday, Wednesday, high school Tuesday, Friday. You can still be there for your son. That's how I ended up at Hinds. And I'm sorry for taking you all around the world, but that's how my journey led me from school to school, place to place. It's not just Fletcher just looking for a big ticket. I mean, it was just life circumstances, and that's how I was able to, make a deposit in so many places that the Lord allowed me to go to, and I'm grateful for it. But that's kind of how my journey took me in this lifestyle of coaching.
Nah, coach, I'm glad you took that time. That's why I asked the question, because again, I only knew a piece of that, coach, and I'm taking so many notes because I got to go to page 2 already. Man, I learned. I'm gonna piggyback on some of these things, but I'm glad you talked about those things. That incident with the jail story, man, that kind of stuck to me. When you was telling me that story, I was thinking about that because I often think about different professions, on how people are just called to do different professions, and that has to be a tough situation. And it's an officer. Of course, I'm at Richland High School now. It's an officer who works at Richland, and he's in that kind of situation too, where he know it's tough. But what he does, he said the same thing. Coach, I want to come over and talk to you guys, talk to the young ladies before I have to see them on this side of it. And that's so important because he said it breaks his heart to be able to see, obviously, arrest another, African-American kid, but not just African-American kid, any other kid of any other race. But of course, home is home, and your heritage is something. And he talked about this. So that was major for that. Coach, it's a lot of people we kind of know. It's a lot of great people, and we may talk about those in general, but if we don't, just shout out to Coach Strutter, man. He did a good job at Tougaloo, a long time coming. He been a legend around here and got an opportunity, and he showed everybody what he can do. We mentioned Clint Johnson and Trey Johnson, man. They were neighbors, still neighbors of my parents, good people. Coach Clint Johnson, as I called him, man, he gave me some good advice when I was young. And to be honest, I'm gonna tie this Merle story in, and I think this works perfectly. And you were a good encouragement for me, Coach, because again, went to Merle like you went to Morton, wanted that job, really wanted that job. I had an opportunity to coach half of the season when they let my guy, Coach Dorsey, go, Marlon Dorsey. I know you're probably familiar with Coach Dorsey, and hopefully we can have him on because we got an interesting story too for those who kind of know the whole thing that kind of took place during that time. And so I was able to go 9-5, Coach. And so in my mind, I'm thinking, Coach, I'm 22, 23. Man, I coached against Coach Billups in the Christmas tournament. I beat Coach Billups. And again, that's the grace of God, but that's kind of one of my highlights of the game. Played against Jim Hill, beat Jim Hill. So in my mind, I'm like, man, I'm killing this. And we talked about this on a number of episodes, and I appreciate you for watching it because I can tell you've been listening. The whole time it was set up for somebody else to take that spot. And I talked about it already, so I won't go into detail, but very hurt by it. And Clint Johnson was one of the guys in the interviews. So now I get in the interview, I'm like, okay, Clint Johnson is in here, some other people in here. And I say, Clint, he watched me grow up as a kid. He knows me. Like I could literally walk to his house from where, because I was still living with my parents at the time, still a young coach. I could literally walk to his house. And so Clint, he asked me questions. He said, I seen you grow up, boom, boom, boom. So I'm feeling good about it. So then when I don't get the job, I'm so upset because I'm looking at Clint like, man, like you know me, like you know me. And that put a rift between us indirectly. We never talked directly about it because you, like me, coach, some stuff is always understood. As I got older, I had people like you and other mentors like Coach Bruce Robinson, who's at Jackson Prep now. They told me, Coach, you got to take your personal side out of it. And eventually, when Clint and I was able to sit down, and we actually never ever talked about it, but we talked enough about it to be able to say, "Hey, I got you, and you got me." So it was funny how those stories kind of intertwine, because at the end of the day, Clint, when he was in Jackson Public Schools, the athletic director, and you know it, he took a lot of hits because he was doing something different. He saw what it was on a collegiate level, how you got to put people in place who resemble and believe what you do and who's going to get the job done. So he changed the way he did hiring, and people were upset. But when you look back at it, he made some great hires from yourself, even a lot of different guys from different schools. And so the business side of it can never get in the way of it. Coach Dawson's a good guy of mine. He's in administration. I know you're a mentor to him, and again, he's also a Provine in administration. So that was an interesting thing. Coach Riley, I did see that today. Of course, when this episode airs, he's almost going to be close to becoming a doctor. So again, shout out to Coach Riley as well in that manner of it. But Coach, you got an amazing story. I like you went from Morden, Brandon, got your Murrah, Newton. I forgot about Terry. I know that was just so recently. And then Brandon. And Coach, that's amazing of you to be able to step aside and say, I want to support my son. And Coach Barnes and Brandon does a good job. I love the interview because like during that time when you was making that run, I love that positive interchange or exchange that y'all had on the court when Barnes, you can just give me one, man. You can just give me one.
They had the best team that year, man.
Yeah, man. Coach been doing it for a long time, and Coach Barnes, he watched the show, so hopefully we can get him on, and preferably, man, he can get it, man, because he's been there and he's been doing enough things to get it. But sometimes it's not in the cards. I think some people give Coach Barnes a hard time and say, well, he can't do it. If he couldn't do it, he wouldn't be successful as he was. Right. In life, man, sometimes things just happen. And that's kind of going to lead me to my next question, Coach. If I look at your story and I look where you are at Hinds, and I know you're an author, I know you're a minister, you're a coach, but Coach, if I had to give your life a documentary, if I had to make a documentary for you, if I had to write a book or give you a suggestion, it got to be Favorite, Coach, because your story is Favorite, Coach, because Coach, you in the right place. And I'm looking at my notes. You're at the right place at the right time. The timing is not necessarily perfect, but it's right on time. Everything you needed was right there. And so, Coach, you definitely are blessed with that, man. And I'm just excited to be able to see that. So I'm gonna change the script up a little bit while we're at this point. Coach, talk to me a little bit about your ministry, Coach, because it's funny how you are a minister. And what I mean by that is coaching, teaching, and ministry is really all in the same. So you really walking in your calling in 3 different phases. And so, Coach, while we're here, talk about ministry and wherever you want to go with it, wherever your spirit leads you with that. And then kind of talk about how you kind of maneuver and being the author. And then we'll kind of jump back on the basketball side, because I think this is a part we need to kind of pause and be able to understand that side of it, because we're going to get to the basketball side of it. But your ministry has been just as successful as your basketball has been, because I know a lot of individuals who attend your church. I know some of my former players at Pisgah, they attend your church. I know Coach Fairley at Clinton. She talks highly of you. I'm not sure if she still attends your church, but she did. She still attend? She attends your church and she speaks highly of you. And Coach Fairley is super competitive. When I was at Pisgah and Pelahatchie, we went at it. So, Coach, talk about that because I think that's important to your journey, and we'll get back to that basketball.
Um, Absolutely. Actually, man, ministry is who I am. When I gave up and when I gave up and when I surrendered and said, Lord, I'll go. Um, that's exactly what I meant. Lord, I'll go. That's who I am. And basketball is just a vehicle that I'm able to use to minister what God would have me to minister. And I will say it actually coined who I am as a coach through basketball. When I was at Morton, when I started out coaching at Morton, I was a minister. I wasn't pastoring, but I was a minister. That's why I was there at Morton. And I had an opportunity to coach a white kid by the name of Joseph Thompson. He went to Pelahatchie, but his senior year, which was my first year at Morton, he moved to Morton and he transferred. He was a 6'7" white kid, ended up signing at East Central Community College. I coached Joseph 1 year. He was the only white guy I had on the team. Oh man, we called him, man, that he was something special. But anyway, went to EC his sophomore year, he suffered a heart attack. And they called my wife and I, and they told us he was over in the Baptist, had surgery, been in ICU. And his father reached out and told me what happened. And as soon as my wife and I could, we went to see him. My son PJ was a baby at the time. This is when I was coaching at Forest at this time. This is when I was getting ready to give up on coaching, just go into the ministry. I was just going to do pastoring ministry full time. Walked in that ICU room, see Joseph Thompson, 6'7", laying there, man, with all these tubes hooked up to him. And I get emotional even now thinking about it. And his mom was there crying. And when I walked over, stood in front of the bed, his mom was standing there, my wife was there. He had all these tools. He looked up and he saw me and he said, "Coach Fletcher." And his mom just broke. And I'm like, "What's going on?" She said, "He has been in ICU for 3 days and hadn't said a word. This is the first time he said a word." And I mean, that just broke me, man. So I didn't want to see him like that. I didn't know how bad it was. And I mean, Joseph doing well now, man. I said, "Big Joe," I said, "Man, what you doing in this bed?" I said, "Man, you got to get on up from here now." I said, "I'm finna get out of coaching. I need you to get on up and graduate because you told me you want to be a coach. PJ a baby. I need you to be able to coach PJ." And this is what changed my life. Joseph said to me with these tubes in his face, he said, "No, coach, I want you to coach PJ." I said, "Joe, I want you to coach PJ." He said, "No, coach, I want you to coach PJ because I want you to put in him what you put in me." And man, that changed from then on. I told my wife, that's why I told Clint Johnson, "Man, I'm gonna take the Merle job." And that's why I didn't change who I was. I don't force my belief on anybody that I coach, but who I am in the Lord. I mean, I walk in that even in coaching because I realize, we hear that saying that we may be the only Bible that some people read. We may be the only church that some of these kids get. We don't know what they have at home. And not only just the children, but even in the schools, in the community, it's so much wickedness going on. And being able to be amongst children in a high school or a collegiate setting and dealing with the community, you're able to understand the climate of what people are going through, which that's good for me because now I know how to tailor my ministry. I don't want to just be a guy to get the Bible and thumb through. Oh, we're gonna preach from Daniel. No, I want to be able to minister relevant principles to be able to help the people. And I think by the Lord having me in coaching and building a relationship with those kids and with the community and the family, I'm able to see the struggles, or I'm able to see the areas where people need hope in, and I'm able to tailor my ministry from that. So it actually works together, man. And Joseph Thompson, by him saying that, when I was in a place of even wanting to doubt that how can you be a minister and really coach and get the best out of kids, I realized it wasn't about wins or losses on the scoreboards. It wasn't about championship. Man, it's about winning a championship in these children's lives. And that's what I predicated my coaching on. You know, I stopped trying to coach and get my kids to play for who's in the stands, but I pushed them to play for who's above the stands that's looking down. You know what I'm saying? We play for his glory for our victory. And that's been my motto. So my coaching, man, my kids, man, it'll turn into that. Oh man, we in church, you know. And I'm not preaching Peter, James, and John, but just um life nuggets that they need to be successful. That is my ministry, and God showed me that the reason why I'm not going to let you get out of coaching, because you looking at your ministry within four walls of a church. But son, I'm calling you for your ministry to be within these four walls of this gym. So that's kind of the approach that I take with ministry, with who I am, and man, the church. Um, that that's my sanctuary. That's my peace. You know, basketball is not, it's never been a job for me. It's not work for me. It's ministry. And actually going into a church to pastor, that's my peace, man. I can be dead dog tired, man. I practice on Sunday evenings. I go preach twice on Sunday, but that is life for me. That's just who I am. That's who God have called me, and I walk in that purpose. And I honestly believe, I know one of the things that we were talking about, me coaching on back on the college level, the Lord, I struggled when in 2004, when he was telling me, I want you to leave Alcorn and go and learn of me and preach my word. I'm like, Lord, you want me to give up my dreams? I'm coaching on the collegiate level. I'm 22 years old. And when he showed me, you either gonna do it, I'm gonna take your life, I gave it up and I went into ministry. And when the Lord opened his door for me to come back and coach on the collegiate level, the Lord reminded me, by you being faithful over a few things and doing what I asked you to do, everything you thought you lost, I gave it back to you. So, man, that's why, man, I'm telling you, man, that's why I live the way I live. That's why I don't mind giving and helping, and my life be a sacrifice, because God has been so good to me, man, so faithful to me. So that's huge, with who I am, is ministry. I mean, we shared that earlier. Seek ye first the kingdom of heaven and all these righteousness. I want to tell all these young coaches, man, look, it's not about trying to get a championship. When I stop worrying about getting that win on that scoreboard and start focusing on winning in these kids' life, that's when God opened the door and said, okay, I'm gonna give you the desires of your heart. When we try to meet his heart, when we seek after God's heart and live our life the way he wants us to do, then he'll give us the desires of our heart. Seek ye first the kingdom. And that's been my pet peeve, and that's what I stand on, man. That's why I know that God is pleased, because there's no way he would grant me the favor that he's granted me unless I'm obedient to what he has called me to do. And that's to be a minister. That's who I am first.
Coach, I like that because that is who you are first, and you can make it happen and you can make it work. And you said no price tag on purpose. Is that's a motto? Is that's what I got? No
Yes,
price tag on purpose.
that's
And
one of my pet peeves.
one thing I think about that is we kind of transition back to a couple of things. Um, when you're thinking about your purpose, it kind of reminds me, kind of like Candace Foster a little bit, who's going back to Murrah High School.
I'm so proud of her.
Yes, I know it, man. It's we had a conversation, and after the interview, and this is my first time I think sharing it on live. After we finished recording our podcast, she asked me, and I should have known, knowing Candace, that she probably had another motive going on. She asked me, she said, Brandon, would you go back to Murrah? And we talked about all the issues and things of that nature about, going back and, trying to mend things and fix what happened, etc. But I told her I wasn't sure. But I can tell that her wheels were turning and that she was thinking about it, because what she's always talked about is kind of what you said, is purpose and making a difference and helping those kids. Because she said my kids where I am, they're good. They still need help. She said, no knock to where they are. Just because I teach at this particular school doesn't exclude them. But I know the kids where I'm from need that. And she knows, and she hears the chatter where people say, well, why are you going back there? You got a good thing going on where you are. You got to look at the finances, the resources. And she hears all of that, but she still stays focused onto her purpose. And so it's good to be able to hear you say that. And I'm tying that in because as you was talking, I was thinking about purpose, and I'm thinking about other coaches who kind of made the same, who got that same kind of journey. Like I think about Coach Moncrief going back to Brandon. Of course, Coach Strong, who coached with me, she's going back to Forest. And I think about Coach Carlisle at Yazoo City, and Coach McCray at South Pike, and Coach Nichols, he's going back to Scott Central on the football side. And they're doing it for a purpose, Coach. And you talked about that hometown thing, and that's kind of the biggest thing that I always be in concern. But I like what you said biblically, and I'm saying that because it seems like the trend is coming back where schools are hiring their own. And what you said earlier is that for those who are going back home, there's no price tag on their purpose. Stay focused, stay align with your assignment, and it's going to work itself out, even when it gets tough, because God has called you for that. And you said it, Coach, when God's pulling on your heart, you got to make that move. So encouragement to those individuals who going to back to their home to make a difference, but also too, hopefully some of those community members are listening. Give these coaches an opportunity, because a lot of them
Yes.
are making sacrifices to come back. Because as I'm looking at this list, a lot of these coaches had some good things going on. Like even though I look at my man, Coach Carlisle, he had some good things going on. And when he took over Yazoo City, and that's kind of what my dad's from, Yazoo wasn't in the best position. So it's a sacrifice. So I'm asking community members just to support that.
Yes,
And
indeed.
it makes a difference, man. Like you said, even going back to Clint Johnson, at that time, he made the right decision in my position, because at that time I wasn't ready, because I was what you said. I was more focusing on championships. I wasn't about the things that I've learned now what coaching is. A coaching is so much more than winning
Yes, sir.
championships. And so, man, just shout out to a lot of stuff that's going on. And Coach, you speaking so many facts, man, and it's a blessing. And I know you blessing somebody else, because you blessing me, because you're generating conversation on things that we don't originally have planned. So, Coach, I thank you for that. Coach, let's talk a little bit basketball.
Okay.
Coach, you on the collegiate level. I know a lot of coaches on here are looking forward to get to that level. They're excited about that. And Coach, you had already been there before, and so now you're just coming back around to it, because again, you were faithful, as you said. Coach, talk to us, because I want to learn this more, and I know some other people want to learn. Talk to us about the interview process, on how that process works. That's just the first part of it. And then I'm going to kind of just combine some questions together. And Coach, talk to us about your first year. You can talk about your year at Hinds, obviously, because you've been there. It's going on second year.
Yes, going into my year 2.
Sir. So talk about that, and then talk about the everyday grind of being a college coach. And you kind of mentioned it, because you got to manage families. So Coach, again, talk to us about the interview process, because it's important to know how to interview. Talk about the season, and we talked about a little bit off camera. And then also too, Coach, talk about us the daily grind, because I know it's something that I want to do and so many others want to do, but that grind is something else.
It is, man. And actually, you should always desire. That's one thing Sam West taught me when I was working with him at Alcorn. He said every assistant coach ought to desire to be a head coach. He said if you don't have a desire to move higher than where you are, then you'll become complacent. And our comfort zone is an enemy to our destiny. So you should always have that desire to reach beyond where you are. Actually, the interview process on the collegiate level, I went through it in 2 phases, years ago, when I first got into coaching on the collegiate level, and even now. It was a great experience. Basically, going into that process, you have to be sure about yourself. That's the biggest thing. In that interview on the collegiate level, it's going to start out with the competence that you have as a coach, because you got to understand that coaching from high school to college, you're not just coaching kids that's already supervised and coming to school just because they live in an area code. You know, you're going to be supervising adults, um, and you're going to be in charge of them, not just from 8 o'clock to 5 o'clock, 24 hours. So you have to be confident in who you is, um, who you are, excuse me, who you are as a person first. So basically in that interview process, you got to sell yourself. You know, you got to be confident in who you are as a person, and you have to be confident that you are able to hire a staff. You know, that's one of the other pieces that I think a lot of people don't realize when on the interview process. You know, one of the first question they ask, well, if you're hired today, would you be able to hire somebody to be your assistant? Do you have somebody in mind that would be willing to come? So that's another thing. You know, you have to kind of already know, like, I got some people that believe in my vision, that share my vision, that I can be able to name drop in this interview. You know, that's huge on the collegiate level. You know, if you're able to name somebody that's already coaching, maybe high school or somewhere else, that's a big plug for you that they may be familiar with. And then you have to have some history about what you're going into. For instance, you know, I'm at Hinds now. Well, in the interview, one of the big pieces that helped me was my familiarity of the school and the history of Utica Junior College merging with Hinds, and the president William Hoskelaw founding the school, and the history of the coaching. You know, Tamika Reed, who was at Hinds, or me having a relationship with her, me sending her kids from high school when she was coaching at Jackson State, um, able to use all of that, able to have resources and network that you can piggyback on in your interview to show that you are connected, in this coaching arena. That's huge. You know, being able to understand that, you know, you're going into a conference and not a district. You know, being able to know some statistical facts of what you're up against, the areas that you need to improve on, not just, you know, about, oh, I gotta get kids that can handle the ball, I gotta get kids that can shoot, I gotta get some kids that are gonna be able to win championship. On the collegiate level, they're not really worrying about you coming in there talking about winning a championship. They want to know if you're able to put in place a sound program that will not be scrutinized, or it won't be in the media, that won't be on the news. What kind of plan you got in place to assure us that you're going to have adequate supervision? Are you responsible enough? Are you confident in who you are as a person? So those are some of the things that you have to have your mind ready for going into the interview. And usually it's going to be two-part. That first part, it has nothing to do with any X's and O's and what kind of offense and defense you're gonna run. It wants to know about how resourceful are you as a person. You know, do you have your ducks in a row? What's your take on fundraising? How can you increase involvement in the community? How can you get people in the stands? So that's kind of the mindset that you have to evolve around, and get a game plan ready for that first, and then put together your portfolio of how you would run your program and what would make your program different from any other program on the collegiate level. You know, what would you be able to implement that'll make your program stand out to make kids say, I want to come there. And yes, sir, coach, it is a grind on the collegiate level, because every day you have to recruit every day. Even if you have your roster set, you got to be looking down the line 2 and 3 years. You got to know who the best players are, in each class, 24, 25, 26. I'm just using that since we're in that genre. And not only do you have to know them, you have to start building relationship with area coaches, AAU coaches. So you constantly on the phone, you constantly talking, you constantly in the gym, going somewhere to watch somebody practice. And I pride myself. You get emails, countless emails every day. Hey, I want you to look at, I got a player. I need you to look at her. She may be 5'5", she may be 5'2". You may even know she can't help your program. But I want to give a reputation, man. Look, I emailed Coach Fletcher and he emailed me back. I drove 3 hours to see a kid that I knew couldn't help us, but I drove 3 hours, man. And look, 2 years later, that coach might have a stud. And they may say, Coach, I remember you came down here to see little Susan. She couldn't walk and chew bubble gum. I got a girl now that's averaging 40. I want her to come to your program. Hey, you never know. So you have to be willing to do that. I wouldn't be able to do what I do on the collegiate level if it were not for my wife. My God. I mean, she's really my rib, man. I mean, I'm telling you, um, we were together in '96, high school sweetheart. We was together illegally from '96 to 2005. We were illegal. And then 2005, we made it legal. So we've been together from 2005 to now. But when I tell you she's been my number one fan, my best cheerleader, she don't question. Women call, coaches call, players call. She don't question nothing that I do. My phone, I don't have no password, and I'm not on social media, which I got to do better. I'm not on Facebook, but I need to. And I tell my wife all the time, I don't want to get on Facebook because when I was at Jackson State, I'm scared somebody gonna say, "There you go there." So I don't want to get on Facebook. But my wife, man, she understands what God has called me to do, and she know that when you don't have a nagging wife, the Bible talks about that. I leave here at 6 in the morning and I don't get home sometime to 8. And she's never, where you at? What time you coming home? She already knows. I mean, she a lot of times she come and she's a part of practice. She helped me recruit. She's typing up stuff. So that's why I'm able to do what I'm able to do. She hold it down with my son and my little girl. So she's my MVP, man. Um, that's why I'm able to do and handle the grind, because it's definitely a grind. It can be overwhelming. You really have to pace yourself and you have to prioritize what's important. And the main thing, you have to understand that when those parents trust you with their children, you are the guardian. So you spoke about that earlier, man. That's so true. You got to make a decision that I'm gonna be on this side as a coach, and I'm not gonna live this life. I got to leave that alone, because a lot of time, those kids, we are their role models, and we can influence them either positively or negatively. So that's huge on the collegiate level. Those kids on that campus 90% of the time, and you have to make sure that you're modeling the right profile that you want them to live by. So that's another thing. It's a huge sacrifice. Your family have to be all in. You just can't get players to be all in. Your family have to be all in, and you can have a successful program.
Coach, I like that, coach, because now everything that you said, and I'm gonna go back through them. I really haven't thought about it in that manner of it. Obviously, the confidence side and selling yourself, but having a I would say a group of guys or young ladies for your coaching staff is very important. So building relationships is important. Knowing the history of the school, being connected, that's so important, and that's something that my mom has always pushed me towards. Go to when you go to these clinics, and again, I'm that guy. I like genuine. I like everything genuine. And I know sometimes when we get around each other as coaches, we just shoot the breeze. Hey, how you
Yeah,
see? And I can't do that, coach. I really can't. So
right.
it pushes me to say, hey, you got to do something a little bit different. And so I'm doing it more. So that connection piece is very good. Being resourceful is amazing. The recruiting part. And coach, you said something, and I learned this when I first started coaching. When you said you went to a spot where you knew you weren't gonna get that girl, or she wouldn't be able to play for you, not in a negative way, but you just knew that she just didn't fit your style. And it reminded me of like the barbershop talk they always say. They say when you're a coach and you get into a community, and this is good for our young coaches, seasoned coaches, go into your community and build relationships. Because when you can call somebody And they say, hey, I'm on the phone with Coach Fletcher. Oh, for real? Oh, you know Coach Fletcher like that? And it takes it so many ways. And so sometimes guys be in the barbershop, hey, let me call Coach real quick. So for what you said, recruiting a kid, they can say, hey, you know, Coach Fletcher came to my gym. Oh, for real? He like that? Oh, you know him like that? Let me call him real quick, email him. So that's so important, is the building relationship piece. And so, Coach, I know you know what you're talking about, because an older guy told me that same thing. And then, Coach, the last thing I'm gonna say, marry well is good. Obviously, you want to be, you want to have somebody of like-mindedness, but you have to have somebody who's dedicated to it. As I kind of study coaches who do it well at a high level, their significant other, like their wives, are important. And I even said, even when I was talking to Coach Walker from Brandon, she said how important her husband was. Like, she said he's the best husband, coach, and spouse out there, because he does a lot. So you have to be committed to that. Coach, everything you said is amazing. It sounds good. And I'm getting influenced just listening to you. But again, I'm an adult. Now, how do you take your personality that you have, your great wealth, your great knowledge of wealth, and how do you make that fit to recruit a kid to come to you? How do you get kids to say, I'm gonna come play for Coach Fletcher and I'm gonna come play at Hinds? Because again, now, Coach, if you were coaching guys and I still have some, have some eligibility left, which I do because I didn't play college, just listen to you, I get up and come play for you. But
Yes, sir.
I'm seasoned and I'm mature, and I'm not thinking at the same level, because again, you got a little bit more wisdom because you've been here and been doing it longer, but I see your vision. I know sometimes when kids coming out of high school, kids are on a whole different level, different mindset. And you're not a guy who's going to change who you are, because you're not going to make it that way. So how do you get a kid? Because that's the part that I know I probably would struggle with, is recruitment. How do you get a kid to come play for you at Hinds?
Oh, well, that's a great question. It's actually twofold. I'm at Hinds, not in Raymond, not in Jackson, not in Vicksburg. I'm in Hinds in Utica, which is a beautiful campus if you've never been there. But we're in Utica. We have a Dollar General and a pit stop. You know what I'm saying? So how do you get a kid to come to Hinds? Dean Barnes taught me something at Alcorn when I was recruiting for Alcorn, because Alcorn is challenging to recruit from too. He said, Fletcher, when you go out recruiting, he said, you got to recruit zebras. I said, zebras? He said, yeah, you ain't gonna get no stallion. You gotta get zebras. I said, what's a zebra? He said, a zebra is the fastest horse in the jungle, but there's something wrong with it. It got stripes. He said, you ain't gonna get that stallion, but you might get the fastest horse, but gotta be something wrong with it. So I'm gonna leave that out there. I'm just gonna put that out there. Go that out there. But really, with me, with recruiting kids, man, something that I live by. I tell kids when I'm recruiting them, I said, number one, I said, you do know you're going to live a lot longer than you play basketball. And I really want them to chew on that. I said, so it's important to me that you don't come to us just to be a good basketball player. I want you to be a good person. So I'm recruiting them from a triple P standpoint. That's what I say, triple P: passion, pride, and purpose. That's what I sell these young people on. First of all, you got to be passionate about what you do. I listen to their music. My son, I'm listening to what, Lil Baby, Black or White. I'm listening to this music that they listen to. All of the, my girl, I listen to what they're saying, so I know kind of the vein that they're in. So I'm able to use that to convert it to talk about passion, to talk about our program is built on passion. In order to play this game to be successful, we got to figure out what your passion. Why do you play? Do you play just because you got a crossover, just because you're fast? Do you play just because everybody say you're going to be good? What's your passion? So when I'm at a visit, when a kid is on a visit with me, of course I'm selling myself, because Hinds, we've been down, the program been down the last 4 years. So I can't sell them on like I'm at Jones. We done won state 7 years out of the last 8. So I'm talking about the vision that you can be a part of something that's bigger than yourself. And it starts with passion. Then I talk about pride. You know what I'm saying? Hinds, a lot of people don't know, in Utica, we're the oldest HBCU in the state of Mississippi. Hinds and Kahoma, we're the only 2 junior colleges who are HBCU, but we're the oldest junior college. I talk about our president, William Hochsclaw. who came from Tuskegee to find and establish this Utica Junior College, and all he had was a bicycle, $2, and a yo-yo, well, a pocket watch, a pocket watch. I talk about that. You got to have some pride in who you are. Yes, it's one thing. Yes, I use the Black Lives Matters. I mean, it's one thing. You look at Travis Hunter and what he did. You know what I'm saying? So I talked to the, and I'm so proud to see Deshaun Ruffin coming to Jackson State. You know what I'm saying? And it's nothing wrong with Ole Miss, nothing wrong with Mississippi State. If kids got an opportunity to go there, of course I'm gonna push them there. But I talk to these kids about pride, because a lot of time our kids are so caught up on these iPhones and and social media and how they look and Snapchat. And I try to show them that life is bigger than who you are at this moment. It's people that died and people that lost their lives and gave up opportunities so that we could have the privileges that we have. So I really horn on talking about pride, man. When you play for Coach Fletcher, when you come to Hinds, you know what I'm saying? On the back of our shooter shirts, it say built different. It's a different mindset here. And then I talk about purpose. You can't just be remembered as a ball player. You got to have a purpose beyond your profession. I mean, yeah, your profession is one thing, but what's your purpose? And that's what we try to horn in on. And that's kind of what I use in recruiting young ladies and even young men. And I'm telling you, I hold on to the fact that you're gonna live a lot longer than you play basketball. And I sell that to the parents. So I want to make sure that we build on what you've already started with your daughter. And when she come back to you, I want her to be a whole lot better than when she left. That, so it's bigger than just winning a game with us. So that's kind of the vein that I come from in recruiting.
Coach, I like that, man. And every time I talk to someone, I try to take something from them. And your 3 Ps, passion, pride, and purpose, is all tied into that. And that makes a difference. Recruit them zebras, man. And you're going to live longer than you play basketball. So let's talk a little bit about the basketball side of it then, Coach. I had an opportunity to see you coach for, years now. So I kind of got a feel for it, but I just kind of want to pick your brain on some things. So I'm going to kind of jump around a little bit basketball wise.
Okay.
This is all right. So let's talk the implementation stage of a team. So, because a lot of times when you, as a coach, when you get to a place, it could be on high school, it could be junior high, but especially on the college level, those first few weeks, and I would say even first few months of how you implement your system is very key to success. And you've been a number of different places, and everywhere you've been, coach, you've had success. So that means you're doing something right, implementing what you believe in. So, coach, talk us a little bit about your implementation stage. And then as you kind of end that, kind of move into talking about your offense philosophy and your defense philosophy, because I think that can all kind of tie in together with that.
Yes, sir. Great question, Coach. Man, you awesome, man. We're gonna put you on ESPN, man.
Like
Um,
that, brother.
I'm telling you, man, you there, man. You're right. The first few weeks, man, is very important. And what I try to establish, and I say but even our coaches, when we bring in kids, soldiers motto, I have them to memorize the soldier's motto. It's kind of like, this is our responsive reading every day. Mine is not the reason why. Mine is to do or die. That's what the soldiers say. You don't ask no question. I'm the only one that got an attitude on this team. You don't have no attitude. So it's almost like a wild horse. I'm gonna ride you, I'm gonna buck you. You don't got nothing to say these first few weeks. You don't ask no question. Whatever I say, whatever we say, that's it. I want you to develop a soldier's motto. And then the next phase is to get to know your players outside of basketball. I need to know what makes you tick. You can be the same coach, but you can't coach every player the same. That's what I've learned. That's the success I've had. I got to get to know you. Lil Johnny might need to be kicked in the butt, and that'll make Lil Johnny go. But Lil Susan might need to be patted on the back. That'll make Lil Susie go. But I'm not gonna change my expectations for you, but I'm gonna change my implementation for you. That's kind of what I hold to those first few weeks, man. Um, is getting to know the players. I really believe in not teaching kids a play, but teaching them how to play. You know what I'm saying? That I don't believe in teaching, they don't care how much you know until they first know how much you care. So my first few weeks, man, the first few months, basically, I'm showing them my whole heart. I'm showing them who I am as a person, that I love you regardless of you gonna make this layup for me, regardless of you gonna win this game for me. No, I love you because you're a person and you have a purpose, and I want to help you find that beyond basketball. So implementation is to develop this attitude that, hey, take myself out the equation. This team is about family. On the back of all of our uniforms, practice uniforms, in our locker room is family, 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 family. You know what I'm saying? I don't care what you say about Eddie Kane and the Fire Heartbeat. Yeah, he messed it up. But at the end of the day, Duck said, man, you still family. You know what I'm saying? And that's what I try to stress in the implementation stage. It's not so much about basketball, but I know, don't get on me, man, but I do have the triple D. I got the triple P. I got the triple D. In the implementation stage, I focus on the three Ds: development, discipline, and destiny. Those first few weeks, it's all about the fundamentals of the game and development. Just teaching discipline. How you put your socks on in practice, how you tuck your jersey, this locker room. The first few weeks, that's important. Your shoes, need to be nothing on the floor in your locker. This is here. This is how you hang your jersey. When you put it up, you put it. I mean, I stretched that for 3 weeks, and I go in and check. And if it's not done right, we're gonna have some time on this float with no ball and just some clock and some time. And we're gonna, I stress that, the development stage, then the discipline, time, and if you on time, you late. Early is on time. All of that is important. And then destiny, I really horn and get the kids. Where do you see yourself? Where do you see this team? What's the destiny of this season? What do you see? Our first day of practice, we cutting down nets. Come on, show me how we going. When we win this championship, show me how you gonna go up the ladder. What you gonna say? You know what I'm saying? That's the philosophy that I try to implement in the beginning stages. Um, then as far as like offense and defense, I'm from the SWAC. So I want to run and gun, man. I want to pick up man to man. I want to be nasty. And I want to get in it. I want you to shoot that thing. But I've learned the offense and the defensive style that I have is predicated toward the players that I have. Even though I love man to man, that's who I am. If I don't have the players to play man to man, then we're not gonna play. Some coaches are stubborn. They only want to play man, but if you don't have the manpower, then you got to put your kids in a place where they can be successful. So my style offensively and defensively is predicated on the players that I have. Dave Whitney, great mentor of mine, a coach at Alcorn, legendary. When I was coaching at Alcorn as an assistant for the girls, I was doing individual pro time with a young lady. And I mean, I was just working her just individually. And Dave Whitney came on that balcony, I'll never forget. He said, Fletcher, you can't win no Kentucky Derby with no jackasses. And I said, what? So after I got through working my player out, I went up to Coach Whitney's office. I said, Coach, he said, man, what does that mean, man? You can't win no Kentucky Derby with no jackass. What are you saying? He said, Fletcher, you were working that girl over an hour on the same move, and she still couldn't get it. He said, son, you got to understand, when you see a Kentucky Derby, he said, what are they riding? Thoroughbreds. He said, you don't see them out there with no mules, do you? He said, the only way they're going to have a chance to win, I don't care how good the jockey is, he got to be on the thoroughbred. He said, I don't care what kind of coach you are. He said, I don't care how great you are, how many drills you do. At the end of the day, you got to have some players. Sometimes you got to accept the fact they just can't do it. And man, that stuck with me, man. That stuck with me. So a lot of the success the Lord had blessed me to have, it ain't had nothing to do with me. I've been blessed to have some great players. that I was able, if you got a handful of spades and you playing spade and all you got is spades, you're gonna win some books, even if you don't know what you're doing. So I might not be knowing what I'm doing, but I've been blessed to have all spades. So that's kind of where my offensive philosophy and defensive philosophy come from. It depends on the players that we have. And I've been with enough coaches, man, I'm a sponge, man. I even take some stuff from you. So to be able to implement with my teams.
Coach, that's good to hear. So you telling me, Coach, so if it was predicated on your talent and your players, you would play a zone defense?
Yes, sir. Listen, that's what made Forest, when I was at Forest, that's what made us so special, man. Listen, I wanted to play big. I had a guy, Michael Chester, that went to USM, played football. He was 6'6". Kahari Parker, 6'5". I had Howard Smith, 6'4". They were so athletic and talented. I had some smaller guys, some guards that was quick. Them guys were so athletic. I needed them on the floor with Trey Pinkston, my point guard, Javante Spivey, these guys that I had. And I wanted them to be on the floor, but I knew they wasn't good man to man. So, shoot, coach, I would take my two little guards and we would pick up full court, man to man, and we would play man back into a 3-2. And people would think we were playing man. We really were playing zone. But I would have my 1, 2, and 3. Man, they would guard that ball. They were like, golly, they would be picking up so hard because they was my most athletic guys. I had 2 guys, and I disguised the other 3. And we would be in the zone, coach. I had to do it because I needed them on the floor. They made our team better. But now I want to be able to be like Coach Luckett, my guy at Northwest Rankin, 1 through 5. Everybody just the same, coach. Oh my God, coach. Everybody can guard everybody. That's what I want. Don't even worry about no zone. Just do like Coach Miller from Southeast Lauderdale. Sit over there and drink your lemonade. Go ahead, guy. But that's what we want, coach.
Hey, Coach, man, it's funny you said Coach Luckett, man. Coach Luckett, man, I watched him. I said it on a couple of episodes ago, but I watched him this summer, and I watched his guys, and you right, Coach. This guy's got it done, and he did it in his own way, his own timing, and it was amazing to be able to see that on how he can get his kids to be able to perform. And you right, Coach. They did it 1 through 5, and he had a couple of guys come off the bench that can do it, and so it was amazing to be able to see that. And coaching, and he started off at a small school, and so that's an encouragement to some coaches, because some coaches feel like, well, I can't do it if I'm, man, you came obviously, but again, you had already had good opportunities when you were on a collegiate level, but when you came back to Morden is quote unquote considered to be a small school, and then you kept on flourishing from it. And so just to give people in hope and encouragement, it doesn't matter where you start, is what God has for you.
Yes, sir.
Coach, I really liked it. I was going to talk about branding, but I don't necessarily have to talk about it because you talked about how you brand your mottos, how what you all wear on your back, on your shooting shirts, what's in your locker room. You have pretty much showed those things are important, and branding is important. We know we see it on the college level, in the high school level, it's catching on faster, and a lot of times it comes with finances, etc. But a lot of times, and I can be honest, I was like this as well. Sometimes it's the old school in us as coaches, and we in the impression that we don't have to do those things when we played, and that's what we give ourselves away. When we play, this is what we need. And we in a totally different generation. Those kids need the music. And it's funny because we were lifting weights the other day, and they said, Coach, can we bring our speaker in here? And anybody know me, I can't do a lot of noise, but that's what get them going. And to be honest, we had a great lift that day. So I told them, as long as you can implement what you're doing and still get what I need you to do, we'll make it work. So a lot of us who are my generation and probably a little bit older, we got to be willing to change. And again, a lot, and I'll say this: you are coaches, you are all right. Music and popping balloons and playing games and doing all these different things, you're right. That doesn't necessarily lead to winning. I totally agree to that.
Right.
It is something that has to be implemented because our kids need it. And like Coach said, Coach listen, and Coach is a minister. So obviously, little babies, I definitely, it's probably not on his playlist. But again, he has to be able to relate to that. So that's amazing to be able to see, Coach. I love your motto. And I'm gonna take that implementation stage from you, because this past year, this was my first year in and at Richland. If I could go back and give advice to any coach who's taking a job, like let's say if you just got hired, you got a new spot, if you can, try to get over to the school as much as you can before you get to the summer. Because
Yes.
the things that we're doing right now in the gym, coach, that we've been doing since probably February, early March, these are the things that I should have been doing the first year with my kids, but because I didn't have an opportunity to get over into Richland until June, and we try to get through summer lead, and then before you get to know it, them seniors, they'll be ungraduated. So if you can get there and start implementing things early, it makes a difference. But coach, I like what you said. You gave yourself a window and you said these are the things that we're going to do. And most of the things that you said on that list had nothing to do with basketball. It was
No.
just
No.
establishing that way. So again, coach, you helping me out. Like you ain't helping nobody else out. You helping me out. Just evaluating and looking at things. Coach, I got a lot more questions, man, but I'm gonna narrow it down to 2 questions, and then I will be remiss if I don't talk about your Jackson State days. So I'm not gonna let you get out here with that. But I'm gonna get 2 more questions that I think that can help us all out. Talk about Jackson State, and then get into our fast break questions.
Okay.
The part that I wanted to focus on is our JUCO basketball is a high level here. Obviously, you talked about Jones. We know Coach Murphy is doing pretty good, doing actually good. Don't want to cut her short. At Kahoma, we know Coach Butler is doing good at East Mississippi, and I'm naming these individuals because they'll be coming on soon on the podcast. And you are coming into it. You're coming off not so good of previous years, but the competition level doesn't change. Like nobody holding your hand and say, well, we love Coach Fletcher. He's a good guy. We're gonna take it easy on him. They trying to cut your head off every single night. Coach, talk to me about your game planning and talk to me about film, because I know it's most likely the same on the high school level that it is in college, but I know it got to be a little bit different for a number of different reasons. So kind of talk to me about just how you prepare yourself for a game when you playing against the Jones of the world and teams in that nature.
Right. That's another great question. Actually, our league is probably one of the toughest league in JUCO basketball. Jones, they've been on the top. Mississippi Gulf Coast, they loading up. And actually, Coach Murphy has just taken a job at Troy. So she's leaving Kahoma. She took an assistant job there. She's been doing a great job at Kahoma. And you are correct. They don't care anything about Reverend Fletcher being a pastor. They're going to try to beat you by 56. They're not going to call the dogs off. And, of course, you got a shot clock. So it's a lot different. The game planning, really, film is very instrumental. And even on the high school level, but on the collegiate level, it is a huge factor. When I watch film on the high school level, we kind of looked at, okay, what kind of zone, what kind of defense they playing, what kind of offense they playing, who's the leading scorer. Okay. But on the collegiate level, I mean, you really had to pay attention to detail as far as stat goes. You have to see if this team is how many rebounds are they averaging, how many offensive rebounding, how many defensive rebounding. I mean, because are they making a living off the offensive glass? Because on the collegiate level, if a team is averaging dominating the game with offensive rebounds, you got to pay attention because you operate on a shot clock. So you got 30 seconds. Well, if they get an offensive rebound, okay, you could have played great defense. So within 5 seconds, they get a shot up. But if they get an offensive rebound, now they got another 20 seconds to run more offense. So that's something you have to pay attention to on the collegiate level. Like, okay, they averaging 40 or 50 rebounds, but 30 of those are offensive rebounds. Okay, so now who is doing his rebounding? So now we got to go into the game and focus on number 34. We got to focus on Hunter. We got to keep her off the glass because we can handle this team by giving them one shot. But if we're going to give them 2 shots, we're not going to be very good. So we got to take Hunter out of the game. So I just gave you an example where film is important. You're not just looking at the film to see, oh, okay, they run a pick and roll offense. There's more tendencies. You got to look at, well, hey, they shooting a lot of threes in the first half. versus no threes in the second half. Okay, in your game planning, that's something you got to pay attention to. Well, is this a pattern? Yes, for 3 games. I mean, they shot 10 threes the first half, but the second half, they only shot 2. Well, the first half, I'm not playing you zone. We're going to play man. Second half, I might switch to play a little zone. So being able to identify those type of tactics, looking at what the strong suit and the weak suits of the team are, looking at a player, well, hey, they got a post player. She's going, whenever she flash high, they looking for a certain disadvantage. They trying to get this mismatch. So, that's something you got to pay attention to. Or when these players come in the game. When I'm watching film in high school, I'm not really paying. I look at the subs, I look at, well, who gonna score? But on the collegiate level, they may sub somebody not necessarily to score. They subbing this person in strictly for defense. Well, if I know this person is playing 17 minutes and they not taking any shots, why they in the game? So now I'm gonna look at number 12. Oh, number 12 is just a defensive player. Well, that tells me, well, I got a person that I don't have to guard. Well, I can double with her man. It's a lot of different things that you have to look that you have to pay attention to on the collegiate level. We have some great coaches in our league. They all do a great job with taking away your strong suit. So you have to be prepared for the counter. And the only way you can know how to counter, you have to pay attention to that film. So that's kind of huge. That's huge in game planning, man. I'm glad you asked that.
I'm glad I did ask it, Coach, because I never thought about it like that. The offensive rebound part. I love what Coach Sampson does at Houston. They big on rebounding on the men's side. But I like what you said, just breaking those things down, because again, at the high school level, it is very basic. And that's one thing that I'm trying to do is just evaluate stats, because again, with Huddle, our school purchased a little special account where you can see more stats. And I've really been trying to spend more time just working on stats and looking at that breakdown of it. And you're right, the competition is good. And I don't know how I miss my girl, Coach Adams at Gulf Coast, man. And she does an amazing job as well. So excited to have her on the podcast soon as well. So, Coach, last thing, talk us a little bit about your assistant coaches. I would be remiss if I don't talk about them, because I know, as you said earlier, they're a vital part of what you do. And I know they're probably on watching and listening, and just want to give them a shine, because I know they work just as hard as you work.
They do. We're blessed, man. I have another alum, actually Murrah, Kawhi Perry. She played at Murrah, went to Holmes, had a great career at Holmes, and went to Jackson State and played there at Jackson State, had a great career. And, man, I'm just fortunate to have her working with us. I mean, she's the biggest thing for an assistant coach, our assistant coach. Her greatest ability is her availability. When you got an assistant coach, especially on the collegiate level, I mean, she's available. If I say, hey, coach, I need you to go to Louisiana. Okay, coach, give me the address. Hey, coach, I need you to go to Vicksburg. She's available. She don't have no irons in the fire. She's going to stop right there. She's going to get it done. Then coach, she still plays. She still get out there and mix it up. She still play a little semi-pro. So that's valuable when it comes to individual skill time. As a head coach, we focus on so many administrative things on the collegiate side, that to have somebody that you trust, that know the game, that can work these kids out individually, because that's a huge part on the collegiate level, is just that individual skill development. And Coach Perry, she's able to do that. She does a great job of working with our young people, and I'm just hoping that I can keep her here in Utica and don't nobody else see her, because I know they're gonna steal her, because I know they're gonna offer her something that I can't pay her. Coach Perry, I'm praying for you now. I know they're gonna offer you big money, but just remember, the prayers of the righteous availeth much. But she's awesome, man. And we also had this year as a grad assistant, Aricia Struthers, who's actually Coach Struthers' daughter. She helped us out this year. She's going to move on to the next season of her life, but she did a great job. She stayed on campus. That's vital. Coach Struthers was huge because she stayed in the dorm with the girls. And that's another piece that we're able to use in recruiting. You know, when you tell those moms, like, hey, look, I got a 30-year-old, you know, that's our staff that's right here with your daughter on the dorm. So, you know, little Johnny ain't coming in because I got somebody right there. So she was huge, kind of the mama hen for our girls, you know, being able to be there on the weekends. And by me being a minister and a pastor, having to go do revivals and can't get room check, and she's right there. So I mean, they basically were lifesavers for me. So I love them. As my former principal said at Newton, kudos to Coach Perry, Coach Struthers. I mean, they awesome, man. They really awesome.
Small world, man. I taught Coach Perry when she was in the ninth grade at Murrah, and I'm glad that she's doing good. That's exciting to be able to see. It's a small world, man. And she
Yeah.
did thing at Murrah. So for her to be on staff with you, that's cool. It's like somebody else in her class, Tatiana Lofton. She played at Jones, and now she's going to ULM to be an assistant. So I got
Yes.
two two former students that are coaching. But shout out to Kawhi, man. Good to see you doing good things with Coach Fletcher. And it's funny how, you know, Coach Strutter did something major in your life, and then look how things turn, you being a blessing for his daughter. Uh,
Right.
Speaking of Coach Strutter in Jackson State, man, talk us about your Jackson State days, because when you came through Jackson State, and we talked about this earlier, as a young man, young kid, man, you all were my NBA star. So kind of talk us about your Jackson State days, and then we'll go to our fast break questions.
Man, D, I love, man, the greatest university, man, on this planet, man. Jackson State was everything to me. Actually, Jackson State helped me understand who I am as a man, man. You know, I really learned. That's the first time I was able to hold up my fist and say Black Pride, man. You know, at Jackson State, it taught me that. And playing basketball there, man, I had probably one of the greatest coaches um, of our era, Coach Stoglin. A lot of people got an opinion about Coach Stoglin, who played for the Harlem Globetrotters. But man, listen, when I tell you every day in practice, Coach was like in a philosophy class, and I used to be like, oh man, a 2 hour practice is gonna turn into 4 hours because coach gonna talk 2 hours. But I find myself saying some of the same stuff that coach said, and now I understand. But Coach Starlin and Coach Struthers and Coach Giles and Coach Gordon, man, those guys made some deposits in me that helped shape the coach that I am, and I'm grateful for my Jackson State days. And listen, I didn't understand it then. You know, they say, oh, Jackson State playing all these guarantee games, getting this money. But I'm so grateful that Coach Stockton exposed us to those different environments in those different schools. You know, we play UCLA and I'm in a gym, and here comes John Wooden walking in the gym talking about a pyramid of success. And I'm looking at him like, man, who is this old white man? And then after I graduated, started coaching, I'm like, man, this is the greatest coach that ever coached. And my coach Stockton exposed me to this man. You know, I saw him live. We were able to go to Nolan Richardson's house. You know, Coach Stoglin worked with Nolan Richardson. He coached on his staff. They coached semi-pro together. So when Nolan Richardson made his run with Arkansas, the 60 minutes of hell, Coach Stoglin exposed us to that, man. I don't have 60 minutes of hell in my practice, but I got a 20-minute of hell that we do. And it's based off that model from Arkansas. I mean, we were able to see it live, man, to be exposed to that. And one of the biggest things, man, that Jackson State, that Coach Stoglin, we play UTEP. Now, if you know anything about UTEP, which I didn't know, but UTEP was originally Texas Western. So when we played UTEP at the shoot around, here come this guy come in there, Bobby Joe Hill, and he speak to us and said Coach Stoglin was his teammate. So I'm like, okay. He's like, yeah, he played on Texas Western. They was the first black collegiate team to win a national championship against Kentucky, Adolph Rupp. I'm like, man, I don't know none of this stuff. So years later, coach, no job. Me and my wife sitting up, my son, we watching a movie called Glory Road. A movie called Glory Road that talks about Texas Western. And I see this Bobby Joe Hill. And I'm like, oh my God, I get in tears. Come to find out, Coach Stoglin was on that team. Bobby Joe Hill was his teammate. This man played won the first national championship as a all-black team, and we met him in person. And I'm like, I shook this man's head. Like, man, like Coach Stockton exposed us to, um, man, a side of basketball that the average athlete will never get a chance to experience, man. And I'm forever grateful to Coach Stockton and everything that he said when he used to say, see it before it happened, be quick, but don't hurry. All that little stuff, timing and spacing. That's all I say now as a coach. You know what I'm saying? But Coach Stockton exposed us to that. And having the teammates, I played with Richard Bradley. As a matter of fact, when I got the job at Murrah, he was the first person I called to be my assistant. He owned the M Bar. He wasn't even coaching. And I said, Richard, you're gonna be my assistant. Richard was my junkyard dog. I come from a little small town, Morton. So I was at Jackson State with all these city boys and Eric Lloyd from Michigan and Brian Nichols from Oklahoma and all these big time players. But Richard Bradley, man, he embraced me. And Richard Bradley was the man. I just was a scrub, just blessed to be on the team. But Richard embraced me, man, and loved me, man, and made me feel like, P, you belong here. And I never forgot that, man. And I'm grateful for what he did, even got back coaching Hinds and helped Tamika Reed at Jackson State. But these were my guys, man, at Jackson State. Those guys, man, Roy Dixon and Timmy Marks and Slim, we're family, man. Lindsey Hunter and those guys, Ryan Lothridge, man, I'm talking about, they all accepted me coming from a little 3A school. I wasn't in the big at Forest Hill, Jim Hill, Murrah, the big school. But when I tell you these guys, James Harden, Bird, and Fidel Wood, those guys, Doug Williams, man, they accepted me and they said, P, you belong here. And man, that changed my life, man. That's the confidence that I walk in as a player, as a coach. Is from that family of guys that we had at Jackson State, man. That they changed my life, man. And I'm forever grateful. I'm forever grateful.
I like the word that you said. You said acceptance, and that's major when people can accept you. And those were some glory days at Jackson State, and we still have we've had some of those days, recently, within the last 10, 12 years, and excited for what Coach Williams is doing. And like you said, we talked about Trey Johnson, what they're doing, and Coach Adams, and I know I'm missing two guys. So forgive me, guys. Again, I don't want to mispronounce your name or say it wrong, but I know it's two other guys, and I get it by the time I get off the show. But again, they're doing a great job at Jackson State. All right, Coach, we get into our fast break question. It's kind of been one of the more popular segments of the podcast because we just kind of answer some random questions, could be basketball questions. And sometimes, most likely, they're related to whatever sport the coach who's on coaches or has participated in. So, Coach, our fast break question is going to start now. Our first one is this: what's the best team you've seen in Mississippi? Basketball team.
Oh, it would have to be 2014 Velma Jackson, Coach Carlisle. Man, oh my God. Moses Greenwood, Quindary Weatherspoon, Kandaris, the little guard. Man, that was an awesome team. And I'm going to tell you why they were the best team I ever seen. In every game that they played, they probably had the best five on the floor. And at any moment in the game, Quindary or Moses or Ken, they could take you one-on-one and you couldn't stop them. They could just play one-on-one dribble drive basketball. You couldn't stop them. But they were disciplined and they ran offense. And they still beat you by 50. I mean, they didn't have to, Coach, they didn't have to make but one pass and they could have scored. But they passed that ball 7 or 8 times, Coach, when they didn't have to. They made 7, 8, and they looked good doing it. And them jokers played the fool out of that 2-3 zone, man. You couldn't score. And then if they wanted to press you, they press you. They was as good as they want to be. And they could have beat anybody 1 through, if we had 7, 8, they could have beat anybody 1 through 7, 8, I think. That's probably the best team I've seen. Hats off to Carlisle. I don't know how he did it, but, man, that 2014 team, man, I know they wanted some years back to back, but that 2014 team, I think, man, that was the best squad I've ever seen in Mississippi.
That was a good team, we played them when I was at Germantown. We had the Madison County tournament, and so we would often have to see Velma or maybe play them. And like you said, that Velma team was amazing. And I heard Coach Carlisle do a podcast a couple of weeks ago, and he talked about that team being just amazing because 1 through 5 were amazing. He had a couple of guys off the bench that did some amazing things. Our next fast break question, Coach. When you on the road traveling and you recruiting, what's your favorite snack?
Probably some skins, man. Spicy. Give me some skins. Give me some skins, man, and we'll get there. Give me some skins and we'll get there.
Coach, the best skins I've ever had in my life. Man, I went to the Catfish Festival in Belzona, Mississippi, Coach. And man, they've had them barbecue skins. They were fresh out the grease, Coach. Those are the best skins I've ever had, Coach. I haven't had any since, man. The Catfish Festival, Belzona.
Hey, well, let's ride out and ride up to the next festival. Me and you, man. I'll buy the gas. You drive.
Hey, that sounds good to me, Coach, man. Hey, learn some basketball from you and get some good skins, man. We gonna get the game, man. That's amazing. All right, Coach, it's been a popular question among all of our guests, and we're going to see, what's your answer. Coach, what's your NBA all-time starting five?
Ooh. Oh, man. Probably point guard would be John Stockton. Even though I like Isaiah, but my point guard would be John Stockton. I like Chris Paul, but I'm just throwing it out there. But my point guard would be John Stockton. Two guard, hands down, the GOAT. I don't care what these young folks say. Michael Jordan, the GOAT. And anybody want to dispute that, I got time. What Deion Sanders say? I got time today. I got time today. My two guard gonna be Michael Jordan. No disrespect to Kobe Bryant. I mean, I love him, man. But I'm gonna go with the two. It's gonna be Michael Jordan, and probably the three is gonna be the greatest athlete that ever played the game. Not the greatest of all time, but the greatest athlete to ever play the game. LeBron James will be my three, man. And the four, I love Dr. J, but I'm gonna go with Giannis at the four. And my favorite player of all time, the Diesel, Shaq, my five. And we're gonna roll.
Coach, that's a good lineup. And Coach, your lineup is different than most people have had, man. As I've been saying on every episode, Michael Jordan is on everybody's list. Coach, I think this episode 18 and 19, Coach, he's 18-0 in that spot. And LeBron is right there. Now, I've seen LeBron fluctuate between two positions. I think you and somebody else got him at the small forward, but they have moved him. Some people have moved him to the four and created the stretch four for him. John Stockton is a first. And Coach, I like that you chose John Stockton. It surprised me because nobody has said John Stockton, but John Stockton has some of the most amazing point guard stats of all time that hasn't even been touched yet. And I want to say steals and assists, I believe, are his ones that he's leading it. And I know I'm probably missing something else, but John Stockton is good with that. So I got Coach with John Stockton, MJ, LeBron, the Greek Freak, and the Diesel Shaq. I said this on another episode. Coach, if Shaq could have stayed the same weight that he was that last year he played with Penny Hardaway.
Oh, my God.
Coach, man, because his athleticism was crazy, man. And
yes, sir.
That would have been hard, Coach. He could have put himself in that. I don't know if he passes Jordan, but man, if he and obviously when he played with the Lakers, when he gained that weight, it made him super like dominant, but it didn't slow the athleticism down. So I get both sides of it, but man, you talk about a dog, man. That's a dog, man, in Shaquille O'Neal.
Yes,
all right, well, I'm gonna throw this one at you. This is gonna be a little bit more challenging. Give me your all-time starting five at Jackson State.
Oh man, that's gonna be easy. Now,
Okay.
I redshirted my freshman year at Jackson State.
Yeah.
Um, and Coach Strutt still made me come to all the practice. I had to get up at 5 in the morning, do everything like I was playing. I was like, man, Coach, I'm redshirted. I don't want to hear that, Fletcher. So I was able to be a guru and look at films, man, look at stats. And man, I'm telling you, there's some great players that come from Jackson State. But my all-time five, my point guard, man, is gonna be Purvis Short. My two guards gonna be Lindsey Hunter, and you know who I'm going with at 3, Flying Ryan Lothridge, and at the 4, um, I'm gonna go with Trent Pulliam. Trent used to cut my hair, man, for $2 in the dorm, man. Trent Pulliam at the 4, and at the 5, I got to go with Big Whitfield. Waney, that's my guy. That's gonna be my 5 right there. Now there's so many more, man. I love Tyrone Kidd. He was great too, man. He don't get a lot of credit, but Tyrone was a player, man. It's a lot of guys. Rod Taylor. Rod Taylor was a player. John Taylor, his brother. Rod still a go for 30 right now.
Yeah.
But that'll be my 5 though, man.
Excuse me, and that whole Taylor family can ball, man. His niece at Ole Miss did her thing. And like you say, Rod can, of course, he's at Pearl now. I came in after him. The student teacher game, man. Rod got his jersey on, and coach, his jersey fitting him so smooth and tight. He ain't got nothing on, no fat hole. I'm like, Rod, what you doing, man? I got be a big jersey, but Rod got it going. He a good guy, man. The Short brothers, my dad talk about them again. My dad, and I meant to say that earlier, my dad was a big Coach Stockton fan, so that's why we were in the gym. He would often talk about the Short brothers.
Man, them guys was the truth.
Yep. Man, I got a picture with Lindsey Hunter when I was like 8 years old, man. Ryan was a dog, man. Trent Pulliam, man. And I saw when he played, when they played Kansas that year, him going against Paul Pierce, man, Whitfield, man, those was amazing. It was some good talent, coach, and it was good to see, man. And I think that fostered my my love for the game of basketball, man. And it was a dream for me to always play at Jackson State. Didn't work out like that. But the funny thing though, coach, is, and it's funny you said that, Coach Strutt, man, he worked with me, man, and like he knew what I had did at Murrah High School. He knew I was a role player, wasn't the best player at all. Coach Anderson, he didn't know me, but Coach Strutt gave me an opportunity. Man, he said, "Come on out." The same thing that he had did for you years and years ago, he did the exact same thing for me. So I was appreciative of him. Again, I just lacked the confidence, man, because I started late. If I knew half the things I knew now, I would have been a much better basketball player. But he gave me an opportunity. At least I made it to the top 10. So at least I hang my hat on that. And coach, nothing changed. They still had workouts. I think we had to get up there, and we weren't even on the team yet. He said, "Y'all 10 guys made the cut. You need to be here at practice and see what's going on." And that was like 5 o'clock too. And coach, that didn't change. So that to hear you say that, and just to hear you talk about these things, it's just so funny how things relate. Last question, coach, and then I'm gonna give you your last shot, which is our conclusion. What's the best basketball arena you've seen thus far?
Let me see. I had to ask my son, what's the name of the arena, man?
Staples Center.
Yeah, the Staples Center.
Yeah.
My son is a diehard Laker fan, man, and for his birthday, spring break, we took him to see LeBron. Now, in Mississippi, Northwest Community College, it's beautiful. They got a beautiful, beautiful arena. And Hinds and Utica, we got a beautiful arena on the low. But man, the Staples Center, oh my goodness, man, it's amazing. It's awesome. That's probably the best arena that I've been in.
Yeah, it is. It is a great arena. I went there years ago when the Sparks played their game when they were still playing in the same facility, man. So that's very good that you got to experience that. That's kind of a bucket list, if you call it a bucket list, for me to visit every NBA arena. Everybody, I got to say it, man. I'm a Pelicans fan. I'm going to keep saying on my podcast till we get some. Hey, I'm going to represent my Pelicans, man, until we win that championship. Coach, before we get our conclusion, our last shot, Again, the Jackson State coaches that I wanted to name, the ones that I missed were Coach Williams and Coach Spencer. And then, of course, Coach Mo Williams, his son is the grad assistant, and we coached against him when he was at St. Joe. So I definitely beat my Jackson State guys out. Now, Coach, is the last shot. Again, for those who've been watching the podcast, they kind of know what it is, but just in case someone's new, the last shot is an opportunity for our guests to be able to just kind of close the show, whatever they want to say, much as time as they need. So, Coach, take your last shot.
First, man, again, let me just reiterate to Coach Sanders how grateful I am for this platform, this opportunity, man. Whatever we can do to support you going forward, man, I'm here. I love what you're doing. Get these stories out. This is amazing, man. We want to hear your story. So let me know if you need me to ask you the questions. I want to hear your story, man. So let me know. We want to hear your side too.
Yes, sir.
And you give us life though, even by sharing our stories. So often, we get overlooked, and I know it's a lot of coaches out there, they grinding, may not be in the best of places right now, and may want to be in a better situation. You feel like you'll never get that opportunity to be seen, to get on that platform, but just be faithful over the few things, and the God we serve, he'll bless you in due season to be rulers over many. Remember, it's all about those lives that you're impacting. The scoreboard may not ever reflect it. Nobody may not ever pat you on the back, but for that one child, that by you having that gym open, they didn't go in somebody's house and steal something. It's going to make all the difference. So what you do, you may not get the money value for it, but just remember that your purpose is not tied to a dollar. Your purpose is tied to a life that you're encouraging and motivating to be the best version of themselves. So in everything that you do, man, just keep doing all you can, not for you to get pats on the back, but to hear him say, servant, well done. That's what it's all about. That's why we do what we do. It's not about us. At the end of the day, we want to coach in such a way that God will get the glory and our players will get the victory. That's my motto. Coach in such a way that God will get the glory and your players will get the victory. That's all I have, Coach. I'm grateful for you, man. Keep doing what you're doing, man. D, I love.
Coach, man, I love this episode, man. God gets the glory, your kids get the victory. That's good. I got that on my notes. And then no price tag on your purpose. Man, Coach, I mean, I'm excited about it. Excited what you have. And I'm just excited, man, to rewatch this, man. So when I go back and just look at it, man, I got a lot of nuggets. And the biggest thing that I've been doing, and I've been keeping all of my notes, because this been helping me out so much, because I see great things you're doing, and I see great things that other coaches and administrators on this episode are doing. On this podcast, excuse me. And I can learn from those things, because we all got to constantly keep learning. So I'm grateful for you. I'm excited for everyone who listens to the podcast. Again, I don't advocate for anybody in particular. But again, if you're a young lady, or if you're coaching young ladies and you're looking for a coach that's going to treat your kids right and make it more about basketball, you listening, you looking at a guy, Coach Fletcher. And again, let his words speak forward. And I'm grateful for those who continue to keep watching the podcast. I thank you for the encouraging words, Coach Fletcher. I appreciate that. And I know that you're just not saying it for the camera, because these are things you have told me years ago before I even thought about doing a podcast. So I'm grateful for you. I appreciate what you're doing. You represent Jackson State well. You represent Christians well, man. I know that's not popular to say, but you represent us well. And you give us guys like myself inspiration to chase our dreams. But you said something key. Even if we don't get to where we think we're supposed to be, we gotta be a legend where we are, and kind of like what Deion Sanders says, and I saw one of his little postings, keep making plays. Like, nobody may not be watching you, spotlight may not be on you, but keep making plays. So until next time, as I always say before I exit, be nice and be kind to someone, and we'll see you on the next episode.